I'm Mara Webster with In Creative Company, and today I'm thrilled to be talking about the wonderful movie, The Secret Art of Human Flight. We are joined today by actor and executive producer Paul Raci, actor and producer Grant Rosenmeyer, and director, composer, and editor HP Mendoza. And HP, I wanted to start with you because I love how you've created so many directorial choices throughout the telling of this story in the way that no matter what themes and narratives the film is going off to explore, even down to the idea of is it possible to fly, that it always comes back to the central character of Ben and a really intimate journey of grief and loss and trying to figure out how to move forward in life that he's going through. And so I was curious about how you made sure that it always centered back to that.
Um, I think that was done by making sure it was always centered back to that, right? Like making that a design tenet as you tell the story. And that's not just for me. I think that goes for everybody that's part of this storytelling process, where it's like, look, yeah, let's be bold. Let's make some really wacky choices. Let's see, like, what could we do with this one shot? We're rehearsing the scene. We're about to shoot it, you guys. What could we do to be crazy, but also how do we make sure that this is authentic to the story? Because if we lose Ben Grady, if we don't have that anchor, the audience isn't going to care. You have a lot of these independent films where you have a lot of people kind of wanting to show off and show the quirkiness and like have their cameras being thrown through the air and like, oh, what a great filmmaker. But like, tell me the story. Well, like who did you attach to? And if people don't like Ben, people don't like the movie.
I love that answer. And speaking of Ben as a character, Grant, I wanted to talk to you about how you kind of developed and stepped into a character that is in the very new and kind of fresh space of having lost his wife, but also the gift of being able to film flashback sequences and how you wanted to make it a really complex portrayal because the film isn't going, oh, everything was perfect between these two. It's like it was a very real relationship. And so I feel like you capture that through the journey that he goes on throughout the film.
Yeah, and it's funny. I would say that the biggest part of that was bringing on HP as a director, because there were scenes in the script, and it was much more hinted at initially of who Ben was, and what his flaws were, and his relationship to Sarah. And then HP came in, and he really was, the driver of, we're gonna show how flawed this relationship was. And also, what if we make Ben weird? Like he sort of uh, there was a lot of idiosyncrasy added, and I was really really grateful for that as an actor, because it's fun to listen anytime you're asked to sleep on a roof, or lose weight or gain weight, or have car chases and do all this stuff. It's exciting and it's fun, but when it comes down to the true emotional through line, who is this guy, what's he grappling with, and what does he need to overcome? It is simple, but it's very layered, and it was very fun to go through that process with HP of figuring out who he was and what he's dealing with.
That's really wonderful. And Paul, in playing this character, I love the fact that I've heard you talk about the fact that you base this around different spiritual advisors and leaders and gurus that you've encountered in your own life. Because I feel like even just from the introductory video that we see Ben watching in the film, he has a very specific energy and he has to be someone that's able to really connect with people and make them look inside of themselves. And so how did you set about your looking at your own experiences and finding that little tapestry that you wanted to weave together of who he was going to be down to his mannerisms and his energy?
Well, it's all just really a lot of it just based on uh, you have to understand when I moved to LA in 1990 early, and I didn't have any success until I was like in my 60s, really a big success with the Sound of Metal. I was church hopping, looking for answers, looking for gurus, the guys that I was like a groupie looking for somebody to tell me what to do. And so this guy I ran into, his name was Nirvana. He was at a spiritual center, dressed exactly like Mealworm. That's who, for me, all I was telling Grant, I paid like a huge amount of money to sit with this guy for a spiritual lesson one time. And we were just sitting there and nobody said a word. I just cried for like an hour. And this is the kind of power these people have over us. And when I'm at these LA parties, and all of a sudden I'm hearing everybody's an actor and they have a part-time job. It's called being a life coach. so I can give this guy $40 to make me feel better. It's insidious. It's Los Angeles. And what's cool about Mealworm, he drives around in this Winnebago, so he can go to Ohio, he can go to Maine and help people for like, $2,000.
And off that point, HB, how did you make sure that you wanted to capture Mealworm and capture this whole trajectory with the idea of, we as an audience have to believe that there's a possibility that he does know how to fly and he knows how to teach Ben how to fly. And yet also we have to be allowed to question it and to have those little cracks and moments where we're going, is this whole thing just a scam? And so how did you want to kind of play with the audience a little bit with that idea?
Well, I think it all just blossomed organically from this idea that I didn't want to be explicitly creating a father-son relationship, right? I didn't want to explicitly make a buddy movie either. But there was obviously some intimacy there. But if we did think about it as a father-son relationship, right? Because we don't hear anything about Ben Grady's parents. So the closest thing we have is Maggie Grace as a sort of older sister and Mealworm as a father figure. And one thing I did say on set was, in life, there's always that one moment when you find out that your father might be full of it, right? Like maybe your father doesn't have all the answers. And I wanted to plant those seeds every so often. So there would be these moments where Paul and I would talk. We would talk about like, okay, is he a shyster? Is he not? And one of the most interesting things, and I don't know if you remember this, Paul, there was a back and forth about like, what should his accent be? How should he sound?
Right.
And it was something that I think like you and I worked on like in a really fun way because we were working with this dialogue that was really well written by Jesse Orenshine, but like everybody on set was trying to make something their own. And that's really easy when you say something like, I want you to be the older sister type. Well, we know what that's like. I want you to be the kind, congenial neighbor type. Yeah, sure. How do you be a mealworm? Right. So it's like, what maybe we should lean into the idea that he's not completely trustworthy. Because I think there is a world in which this film could have been made where he's completely trustworthy and suddenly there's that twist, right? Suddenly you don't trust him anymore. And that's a very comfortable way to tell a story. And I think one thing I liked was that everybody was on board with making the movie just slightly uncomfortable every 5 minutes.
But Mara, on that note, this Nirvana guy I was telling you about, when you get to work in a church, you start to see how they make the sausage, And I started to find out, well, Nirvana was a former drug dealer. So everybody that we look up to, you don't know, but Mealworm is trying. He's trying. Yes, he's got a checkered past, but all of our heroes do.
Yeah.
Yeah. And Grant, for you as well in playing Ben, it feels like he's someone who just so desperately wants to feel something and connect to life in a way that he hasn't been able to for a long time. But it feels like it stems further back than even just the loss of his wife and the fact that they were feeling a little bit stuck in their marriage, going down to when his sister is like, oh, he's someone who can't even jaywalk across the street because he's always been so worried about not conforming and getting in trouble. And so how did you want him to go on this journey of really just trying to feel life in a completely new way that he's never experienced before?
Yeah. That's a great question. Don't have an answer. I'm sorry. I don't know. I just really, I loved his sweetness, and I loved his eccentricity, and yeah.
And it sounds like you had a really visceral experience when you read the script, that you kind of felt very emotional reading it the first time. Did you feel like you were able to carry over your own experience of the way that you responded it into the way that you were playing this character?
Oh yeah, yeah, right away. I mean, listen, Ben, the joy of playing a character like this is that you are sort of the audience avatar. Ben is all of us, and he's designed that way, and he does need to be. And so in that, yeah, I definitely related. I was coming from without getting too personal or too into the weeds on it, because this is not a therapy session as far as I know. It was this script truly, the universe. I believe the universe sent me this script at this moment in time because I just truly needed it the way that Ben Grady needed The Secret Art of Human Flight. I sort of can't believe it's release day. So yeah.
It's such a great day to be able to celebrate after making the movie.
What a good day, right?
Paul, for you as well, there's a really interesting moment in the script where Mealworm says, I wasn't trying to fly when he realized that he could. And it's that idea of, I didn't want to be here anymore. And I thought it was so telling of the pain that he has struggled with in his own past. And I was curious about your interpretation of what that looked like for him and how much you wanted to flesh that out in terms of details for yourself.
Well, yeah, absolutely. That's great because really the whole point, I think, of mealworm and everybody's experience with grief is that sometimes I think we all grieve the same way, or that's how it's perceived, and we don't. That's why it's so poignant that he locks into that one thing, that one grant. I mean, the flying thing. So grieving is a personal experience, and I think this should help people open up a little bit to the idea of you got to let people grieve in their own way, no matter how it looks. You don't know how it looks for them. You don't know how it feels. That's the thing when you say about connection, that gives you, even if you can't connect, maybe it frees you up a little bit to understand somebody else's journey.
That's such a great point, and it actually makes me think of HP. I've heard you in talking about the film say that you feel like the opposite of grief is actually connection. And I feel like this film does a really beautiful job at exploring that idea. And so how did you set about that as kind of almost being like an ethos at the back of your mind as you were telling this story?
I think I just wanted to make sure that it was the ethos of the set. We were all coming from all different walks of life. I talked to people on the phone, on Zoom, because that's how things were being done during the lockdown. We were all in this state of disconnection. And it leaves you kind of broken. People were coming on set who were well established in the industry, and like take one would happen, and an actor would say, like, can we take that again? I'm just not used to speaking so much. Like I haven't worked in a while. I haven't been in front of a camera. And there were just like weird moments where we'd say like, "Oh, it's really odd to be at a table together, right?" And but isn't it beautiful? And we all realized that we wanted that connection, and we wanted to imbue the script or imbue the movie with that. So one of the most beautiful moments that I can't even put a finger on, and I'm not saying that there are no other beautiful moments. This is just the one that's coming to mind right now. Was being 3,000 feet in the air on a mountain and rehearsing the final scene. And it was just a rehearsal. Marcus Menzer was getting the camera set up, but he was also watching us. And it was just me, Grant Niken, and Lucy DeVito, Niken Robinson. And just the rehearsal of it and just ending with a group hug, just set off these tears. And we were like, you know what? Get him out. Get him out. Like, let's not fight it. Like, go ahead, cry. This is like the final scene of the movie. And I remember thinking that we have something special here because everybody is willing to just kind of give their emotions to this. And we were willing to connect on camera. And I'd like to think that it shows. I'd like to think that anyone who watches this can see that we're all connected people.
And connected to that as well, Paul and Grant, it's really lovely to watch the connection that starts to build between your characters because it feels like they both kind of need each other in terms of comfort, and you can sense the trust that starts to develop between them throughout the film. And so how did the two of you set about creating that initial curiosity that they have in each other, but then really building it into a lot of tender moments between the two of them?
Well, that's the beauty of having 21 days to do something.
Mhm.
It's the same way uh, when I worked on Sound of Metal with Riz Ahmed. I didn't know the man. 21 days. By the end of that movie, there's this big emotional thing that happens between us. It's the same thing with this movie, The Secret Art. I hardly knew Grant, but every day we'd get some espresso together, talk, start the day together. But you just build a relationship naturally over that 21-day period. It should be against the law for anybody to make a movie more than 21 days. It should be against the law. Marvel, I'm just kidding. If you're out there, Marvel, I'm just kidding.
Those days with Paul were it's wild to think about because we started the movie we started the movie shooting all of our stuff, and it was so great for setting the tone, both on set and off set. It was so great for setting the tone. And those mornings we would literally wake up, we'd get in my car, we would drive before our call time. We'd go to this one coffee shop, we'd get our espresso, we'd sit out, we would talk or not talk, we'd listen to music or not. Sometimes we'd just sit there in silence, and it created such an ease. between us. And it's really funny because we shot the movie a while ago now, but Paul and I are actually neighbors in LA, and it's still there. The relationship, like we still will go play pickleball sometimes, and so what you're seeing on screen is sort of the just a little bit of the spark. I feel like it's almost like the real thing is so off screen, and what we're getting here is these sparks, just the beginning of a friendship that's become very meaningful to me.
He's so annoying.
And the two of you can go flying together now.
Yes. We do all the time. HP makes a tea, and we just go, baby.
I'm making a tea.
I really love the way in which you've all told this story. I think it was so beautifully done. And Paul, I think Marvel should call you if they know what they're doing. And so congratulations on the film, and thank you so much.
Pleasure, Mara. Thank you.